Longlegs introduction, they call her. Longlegs in the village. No one dares to speak her name after dark. In a remote mountain village in southern Arabia, nestled between jagged cliffs and dense wadis, lived a retired schoolteacher named Abdullah. A humble, God-fearing man, Abdullah spent his days in quiet worship and tending to his goats. His house sat at the edge of the village. Just before the start of the wilderness, the locals called Wadi al-Mata the Valley of the Dead. Rising tension one evening after Abdullah heard an unnatural sound outside his home, a rhythmic scraping on the dry stone floor. He opened his wooden window to see what it was. Nothing, only the deep orange twilight melting into darkness. But then, he saw something move between the palm trees. It was tall, too tall for a person. Its limbs were grotesquely long, stretching beyond what was humanly possible. It didn't walk, it skittered like a spider standing on stilts. But the worst part wasn't its form, it was the smile. From a distance, Abdullah saw the face, a woman's face, cracked and pale, with black, empty eyes and a twisted, inhuman smile stretching from ear to ear. He closed his window, whispered Ayudahu Billahi min Ashatan Erajim, and began to recite Ayat al-Kursi. But that night, he had a dream, or what he thought was a dream. A woman with spider-like limbs stood at the foot of his bed, whispering his name in a voice that echoed like broken glass. I was buried with no name, and now I walk to take one. Deeper into darkness the next day, Abdullah sought out the old Sheikh Tariq. The Sheikh's face paled when he heard the description. He told Abdullah an old story, one few dared to repeat. Decades ago, a woman was accused of sorcery in that valley. She was said to live alone, speak to animals, and disappear for days. They said she cursed the land when they came to take her away. The villagers, out of fear and ignorance, dragged her to the edge of the valley, tied her limbs, and buried her alive. Her arms, Sheikh Tariq said, were dislocated and broken when they forced her into the grave. That's why, they say, she walks now with long, crooked limbs. The Sheikh handed Abdullah a small satchel containing Ruqya verses and warned him not to respond if he hears his name at night. But that very evening, after Isha prayer, Abdullah returned home to find his front door slightly open. He was sure he had locked it. On the floor was a trail of wet footprints, leading inside. Climax that night, the scratching returned about this time. From inside the house, Abdullah stood frozen. He clutched the Quran and recited louder and louder as the sound got closer. Then it stopped. He turned slowly, and there she was, Longlegs bent under the doorway, face twitching, limbs contorted and jointless, her arms dragged behind her like ropes. She whispered, I took their names. They forgot mine. Then she lunged. But just as she touched him, his voice reached the final verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. The room exploded with light. She screamed out like a woman, but like something ancient, echoing through the stone walls of the valley. In the morning, the villagers found Abdullah unconscious, Quran open on his chest and claw marks scorched into the stone around him. He survived, but he never spoke again. Ending TWIST. A month later, a group of young hikers went missing in Wadi al. Only one was found alive. When they asked him what happened, he said nothing, only handed the search team a bloodstained notebook with one sentence scribbled over and over. She smiles when you say her name.